Oh, hello, YouTube. Today in the Naughty Librarian, we are recapping The Mummy, or Ramses the Damned by Anne Rice. I'm starting a brand new Anne Rice read-along series. I am pretty excited about it. This time, we're doing mummies. We've already done vampires and witches. It's mummy time, everybody. This is actually relatively short for Anne Rice. It's like 430 pages-ish. So it's a normal-sized book. The thing is, there are like 8 perspectives in here. And a lot of events are happening concurrently, so it's kind of hard to tell the story and have it make any sense when like it switches back like every other paragraph with the 2 characters. So I'm gonna try my best to make this coherent, but just know there's a lot of narrators in this. And I'm gonna be real with you, okay? Baseline. If you like The Mummy 1999 with Brendan Fraser, like, you're gonna love this, okay? I'm just gonna say it. I said what I said, okay? It has a very similar vibe, although I feel like the movie version is much more zany and funny. This one's much more serious, Anne Rice, gothic kind of romance type of story. Yeah, The Mummy, let's get into it. Let's talk about what happened here. So the story starts off in Egypt. It's 1914. This archaeologist, Lawrence Stratford, he just made an incredible discovery. He found the tomb of Ramses II. You know, Ramses the Great, and he's freaking out about it. He's like, oh my God. He's a history nerd. He just wants to go explore all the things. However, though, all of the things in the tomb make no sense. It's just a hodgepodge of things, of languages that weren't even spoken in the time of Ramses II. There's coins with like Cleopatra on them. Mind you, Cleopatra was about 1,000 years after Ramses II, and all these weird scrolls saying like, oh, hey guys, I'm Ramsey and I'm in love with Cleopatra. And everyone's like, what the fuck is this tomb? And Lawrence's like archaeological partner, this guy Samir, who's Egyptian, he's like, I got bad vibes from this. Like, this is a whole lot of stuff that we shouldn't fuck with. And Lawrence is like, we're gonna go fuck with it, okay? You know, they're excavating the tomb, they're pulling out things, they're gonna like ship back to London, they can, you know, give over to the museum. And Lawrence is really excited to share this big discovery with his daughter, Julie, because he loves Julie. They're both like archaeology nerds together. The worst thing to be in a horror story is someone with something to live for. This is a dead character walking, everybody. I'm just saying, okay? As soon as that happens, I'm like, oh, he's not leaving Egypt. Oh no. And guess what, everybody? He doesn't leave Egypt. While all that's happening in Egypt, back in London with Julie, his daughter, we kind of get like the lowdown on them, and it's like at a big ball, but I'm just gonna like TLDR it here. You have Julie. She has a fiance named Alex, and he's a viscount, and their whole relationship is like they kind of grew up together, like childhood friends. And it's one of those marriage of convenience situations where she's a rich heiress and he's impoverished nobility. So she gets a title, he gets money, kind of a deal. And Alex is like the most kind cinnamon roll golden retriever of a person. He's like, you can't be mean to this kid. He's so sweet. And he's in love with Julie. And Julie's just like, I'm not in love back with you. She really just doesn't want to marry Alex. She doesn't love him that way. She loves him like a friend, but she doesn't want to like be married to this guy. But Alex is so freaking sweethearted that like she can't like bring herself to hurt his feelings because it's like kicking a puppy. It's like you can't. And we also meet Alex's dad. His name is Elliot. He's like the Earl of something. I forget what he's the Earl of. He's very like misanthropic of a character. He is kind of gloomy, and he's a little bit older. He's not that old. He's like mid to late 50s, I would say. And he has a bad limp, like he's got a bum hip. He's got a heart condition. He feels like extra elderly in his own body, even though he's not necessarily elderly. And Elliot loves Julie like she's his own daughter. You know, he would love this marriage to happen. Even he knows, he's like, oh, she ain't never gonna marry Alex. And also, he's kind of like low-key happy they're not gonna get married, mainly because he doesn't want to be related to Julie's cousin Henry. Because Henry is like the obnoxious kid with a trust fund. He's just the worst. He's a degenerate, drunken gambler. However, you know, he's like high society, so like he gets away with being this complete asshole all the time. But like, oh my gosh, he's the worst. And speaking of Henry, he's actually in Egypt right now. He went with Uncle Lawrence to Egypt, and you know, he's off, you know, banging belly dancers and gambling the night away and getting drunk all the time, as the usual. Mainly, he just kind of goes because his Uncle Lawrence has all the money in the family. So Henry, he comes down to the tomb one day where Lawrence is, you know, excavating things. And he's like, hey, Uncle, like, can I have some money? And Lawrence is like, oh my God, Henry, grow the fuck up. Like, no, you are so fucking insufferable. I can hardly believe we're related. Like, go away. And Henry's like, oh, well, okay. You know what? Hey, peace offering. Why don't you have this cup of coffee, dear Uncle Lawrence? And Lawrence is like, this is weird. Why are you being nice? But I do want some coffee. So he takes the coffee and he drinks it. Should not have done that, because guess what, everybody? Henry poisoned it. He grabbed a random vial out of the tomb because there was a bunch of vials of poison in there. He just grabbed one at random and dumped it in the coffee and gave it to Lawrence. So Lawrence drinks it, dies from poisoning, and like Henry's like, oh no. And he doesn't know what to do, so he's like, help! Help! Should I go for help? Because that's like the normal thing, you know, an innocent person, not a murderer, would do when someone is dead next to them. They call for help. So he starts calling for help and like grabbing a bunch of jewelry and shit out of the tomb and putting it in his pocket so he can go sell it back in London. When he's grabbing some jewels and like shit out of this tomb, he swears he can see the mummy's eyeballs are open looking at him. And he's like, oh no, I'm not dealing with mummies today. So he runs off. So now that Lawrence is gone, they start packing up all the treasures from the tomb, because this was the goal. They were going to pack it all up, send it back to London. Julie's in charge of it now because she's Lawrence's full heir. He gives her the company in 1914. Like, he's a progressive. He gave all of his money and his company to his daughter. And it was like Lawrence's last wish that all of the artifacts, they have like a little brief showing at his home of like some of the best artifacts before they move it all to the museum. That's his last wish. So the museum's like, fine, we'll do that. And Julie is spending a lot of time with these artifacts because it basically just keeps her mind off the fact that her father is dead. And it's helping her because like the wolves are descending. You know, Henry's back. Her uncle, Henry's father, is trying to get her to sign all these like business documents and stuff. So, you know, she won't notice that he's secretly been embezzling to give more money to Henry, kind of a thing. And then on top of the business stuff, everyone's still kind of pushing Alex at her. They're like, oh, why don't you get married to Alex? You should get married to Alex. Then he'll control all your money and we can take it from him, basically. Because he's just, you know, easy to trick and very sweet. But Julie is, you know, a very, very modern woman. And she's like, get the fuck out of my house. Like, she just gets everyone out. She's like, nope, I'm not getting married. I don't want to get married. Bye-bye. I don't want to sign the docs right now. My father is barely dead. Like, go away. So she gets everyone out. The only person she like lets hang out with her is Samir, who's her father's, you know, partner. And he's helping her like set up the whole exhibition in her house. And he gives Julie Lawrence's journal because Lawrence was translating all of the languages in the tomb, which were like all different languages that weren't even spoken in Ramsay's time. So there's a lot of information in there and like his findings and stuff. So it's an important book. And he's like, I don't really want to give this to the museum, you know, like you should have it, Julie. So they open up the exposition in the house and it's like, a lot of people show up. Everyone's really excited to see this new mummy because, you know, everybody in London was obsessed with mummies in this era, okay? It was gross how obsessed they were because, like, people were straight up eating them. They were eating mummies. There was a paint color called Mummy Brown because it was made out of mummies. Like, I don't know what their deal was, okay? The Victorian era people just eating mummies. But whatever, they're not eating mummies at this exhibition. They're there to see the artifacts. And it's like a big, you know, display of like the, you know, the sarcophagus and stuff. And Julie's going to make a big deal out of like opening the sarcophagus so everyone can see Ramses II, the great king of Egypt. It was a whole thing. And like Elliot's there and he's an Egyptologist because he and Lawrence were, you know, ex-boyfriends, but still friends. And they were both in the same stuff. So he's like, hey, can I see Lawrence's journal for old times? And Julie's like, of course, Elliot, here, you can have the journal. Just give it back when you're done. And even Henry shows up for a little bit, just long enough to steal some jewelry and leave because he's fucking Henry. And also he has a huge gambling problem, okay? He owes like a lot of money to a lot of not so good people. So much so that Henry, he leaves the exhibition, goes to the club to gamble, loses more money, leaving the club. One of the loan sharks comes up to him. He's like, hey, I got a knife and you need to give me money. Henry decides, you know what? No, I also have a knife. And then he kills the loan shark. So now Henry's up to 2 bodies. He has killed 2 people. This is now a serial killer, okay? But after a hard night of drinking, gambling, and murder, he needs to go home and go to bed. So he's kind of moved into Julie's house with her to be like, you know, man of the house there. I don't know why anyone thinks Henry's the best choice for this. But anyway, he moves into her house, shows up in the morning, all fucking drunk still. Julie's just off with all of the little artifacts and stuff. And she's like just talking to the mummy. Why not? She's just like pretending he's a guy. And she's like, oh, you're so handsome and blah, blah, blah. Like just talking to a mummy. And Henry has the audacity to like kind of go up to Julie and be like, hey, can I have more money? She's like, oh my God, Henry, like how? You and your dad are embezzling already. How do you need even more money? Like how? Like she just kind of throws it at him. But she's so exhausted of all of this. She's like, oh my God, I'll cut you a check right now if you just like leave me alone. Like here's some money, go away. So she gives him the check and she expects Henry just to, you know, leave right away, but he doesn't. Henry, he's just like, oh, Julie, you know, I don't want to fight. Remember when we were kids and like we were friends and hey, you know what? Why don't you have this cup of coffee with me? You know, he just grabs another vial of poison that they had in her house. They took all those poison vials from the tube and they're exhibiting them. So Julie takes the cup and she's like, all right. And she's about to take a sip. But something weird happens all of a sudden because that mummy that's been in its sarcophagus all day, just laying there in the sunshine, it gets up and starts moving and it's shambling over to them. And Julia just sees this happening behind Henry and she's just frozen because she's like, the mummy, it's alive. She's freaking out. And Henry's like, doesn't even notice until like, the mummy grabs him by the neck and is trying to choke him. And he's like, like he's freaking the fuck out about this mummy. And Henry, of course, you know, the chivalry of this guy, he just bolts. He leaves Julie with the mummy, runs away. So the mummy keeps shambling towards Julie and she's just frozen because it's, you know, mummy. And he starts speaking. So now the mummy can talk. And he just repeats words that Henry said in the tomb, which is, why don't you have coffee, Lawrence, or whatever. Like, I don't remember the exact words, but he just repeats Henry's words. So Julie just found out right now the mummy was there when Henry killed Lawrence. So she's like, oh my God, he killed my father. And he tried to murder me. And now there's a mummy walking around my house. Like, it's a lot to take in all at once. So she does what anyone else would do. She just faints. I'm like, yeah, girl, same. I get it. And like the mummy catches her before she like hits the ground. So Julie, she wakes up a few minutes later and she's on the couch. She's like, oh, what happened? Oh God, there's a mummy. It's like mummy's still standing right in front of her. It's Ramses, you know, because it was Ramses' tomb. So we're just going to call him Ramses instead of the mummy now. But there's not really enough time to really introduce themselves to each other because already the police are pounding at her door. Henry went running down the street like a lunatic, screaming to everybody who listened to him, hey, there's a mummy on the loose. So of course, like the police are like, okay, let's see what's going on with this because, you know, mummies. So Julie's like, oh shit, well, we can't have the cops find you. You're a mummy. She yanks him upstairs. She's like, okay, go in my father's room. She turns on the bathtub and stuff. She's washing and like put on a bunch of his clothes. Here, do that, bye. And she runs downstairs to go get rid of the police. So she like lets them in. She's like, hello, yes, how can I help you? It's casual. There's no mummy in my house. What? And everyone's yelling. The police are like, where's the mummy? And like, what's going on? And she's like, do you see a mummy? Like, I'm fine. You can go. I don't know what you're talking about. And as she's trying to get rid of the police, you know who comes back downstairs? Oh, it's Ramses, except now he's cleaned up and he's wearing like her father's like smoking robe and like some clothes. And she's like, fuck. Okay, so, him? He's Reginald Ramsey, and he was a friend of my father's, and he's staying in town for a bit. And since nothing weird is going on besides there's a strange man in the house that she's claiming to know, the cops need to leave. They're like, well, there's nothing for us to do here. So they leave. Henry is the only one who really knows that's the mummy who's come to life, and now he's wearing a smoking jacket, and he's still scared shitless, so he doesn't want to deal with this mummy, so he leaves too. He goes over to Elliot and Alex, and he's like just laying into this whole thing, like, the mummy, it's real, and it's gonna kill us all, just like anyone who will listen to him. And Elliot, however, has been reading Lawrence's journal, so she's like, there might be a kernel of truth in all this. So he goes over to Samir. He's like, hey, Samir, we both really loved Lawrence. He was our, our partner, our friend. What do you make out of all this? Because Henry just showed up at my house saying the mummy's alive. A combination of things is happening. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff in the tomb that makes no sense. And all those, like, scrolls were, like, outlining an immortal being. So they're like, maybe it's like a real thing. Maybe he is an immortal being mummy guy. It's preposterous, but none of the other things kind of make sense. So they kind of buy it. They're like, okay, well, this guy's an immortal mummy. And speaking of immortal mummies in London, let's go back to Julie. So everyone leaves her house, and now it's just her and Ramses. And she's like, I don't know what to do. She's like really confused. She's like, do you want food? And like, she's trying to speak like broken Latin to him because it's the only like ancient language she knows. And she like makes him a bunch of food, and this guy eats like a horse. Like, he will eat everything in her house. And Julie still really doesn't know how to speak to him. He ends up finding an Egyptian to English to Latin dictionary, and he like just reads it all, so he knows the words. And like, Julie is pointing out stuff and like telling him what it is in English, and he's picking up the language like lickety split, just super fast. So now that like he's gained a working baseline knowledge of English, they can kind of talk to each other. So like, what else are they gonna do that day? Well, she's like, I'll show you around town. I'll pick out clothes for you to wear so you're dressed properly, and I'll take you all around London and show you like the modern era. And so they go all over town, and he sees cars for the first time and like museums and stuff. He's learning all this stuff really, really quickly. So they've been gone all day. Eventually, they're tired. They're gonna go back to Julie's house, and they get there, and Samir is there. He was waiting for them. He was worried about Julie. He's like, is this mummy gonna murder Julie? Like, I should probably check in. And she introduces, Ramses as Reginald Ramsay. And he's like, oh, I've never met you before. And they go to like shake hands, and he realizes that's fucking Ramses' signet ring that the mummy was wearing. And then Ramses got speaking to Samir in like ancient Egyptian, and he's like, oh my God, you're King Ramses. Oh my God. Like, Samir's freaking the F out. And Ramses is like, Samir, you're a good dude. Like, I can tell. You came to check on Julie, and like no one else came to check on Julie, see if she was alive. So like, we're good. I'll come talk to you later, but like, ain't nobody gonna hurt Julie. Like, I'm really into Julie. He leaves, and he's like, hey, come visit me later. I'm gonna leave the side door of the museum open, and like, we can talk. So after Julie goes to bed, Ramses goes to the museum to go visit Samir. And he takes them all around. He shows him like the Egyptian wing of the museum. And Samir suggests that Ramses should go to Egypt for a bit. Like, retrace your roots. Also, there's a lot of people who are super suspicious about you right now. So it might be best to like get out of Dodge for a bit. And Ramses is like, yeah, you're right. I should probably go to Egypt. Why don't you come with me as like, my helper? And Samir's like, oh my God. I'm gonna be hanging out with King Ramses. Like, he's very excited about it. He's like, fuck yeah, I'll go to Egypt with you. Let's go. But first, Ramses has to go get Julie because he's kind of like really into Julie. So he goes back to Julie's house, and Julie's still asleep. It's the middle of the night. So he starts like going through all of the little things from his tomb in there. And he starts looking at the vials, and he pulls out this very particular vial. Out of all of the poisons, there was one in there that wasn't a poison. It's actually his like immortality elixir. And he's like, well, it's been a long time since anybody touched this stuff. Does it even work still? Is it still potent? So he takes it, and he like tries it on a couple plants first. He's like, well, plants are like the least problematic thing to turn immortal. So he tries it on a couple, and oh boy, full bloom in the middle of winter. And he's like, oh, yep, it works. It still works. Ramses gets like more vials, and he pours the elixir into all these little vials. He's like, I'm gonna keep these on me. I feel like this is safer if I have them in my pocket. Just having the elixir available to people in general is dangerous, as he has found out living, over thousands of years. TLDR on his backstory here, when Ramses II was king of Egypt, he was fighting the Hittites a lot, and he found this Hittite priestess, and she had the elixir, and he killed her and took the elixir. And mind you, the elixir isn't even hard to make. It's like basic ingredients that somehow when you combine them in a certain way, it makes people immortal. And Ramses has been around for a long time, and he's like a reverse vampire because the sunshine gives him strength and vitality. And when he's cut off from sunshine for extended periods, like in a tomb, for example, he kind of just withers away and becomes like a mummy and like is sleeping. A really, really deep hibernation sleep kind of a thing. And throughout time, like different rulers of Egypt had awoken him. And guess which pharaoh of Egypt was the last one to wake him up? Oh, it was freaking Cleopatra. Like he and Cleopatra were like a thing, okay? They were boyfriend, girlfriend, lovers, what have you. And Cleopatra had like the Caesar thing and everything, and that was really just political stuff. And then she met Mark Antony, and they had like this toxic relationship where it's just like, he is bad for you, but she just couldn't quit him. It really broke Ramses because he wanted Cleopatra to leave Mark Antony and she wouldn't. And then we all know how she dies in the end. So, he has a rough past. So in the morning, Julie wakes up, Ramses is still there, and he's like, hey, Julie, we should go to Egypt. And she's like, absolutely, we should go to Egypt. I'll get everything ready. And of course, like all the rest of the dudes in her life find out about it. Uncle and Elliot and Alex, they all go to her and they're like, hey, you can't just run off to Egypt. What are you doing? And the easiest person to get to back off is the uncle, because she's like, uncle, here, like, I don't want you to tell me what happened, but like I'll sign the company over to you still. Here, you want it, you can have it. Because the uncle isn't necessarily a bad guy. Was he embezzling to give money to Henry? Yeah, but like he's just a guy with an idiot son. And there's nothing she can do to buy off Alex. He's her fiance. And he's like, you're gonna go to fucking Egypt with a strange man? Like, no, I'm gonna go with you. And Elliot is Alex's dad, and he's like, oh, I'm really into this Ramses person. Like, I'm thinking I should get to know him. And then Elliot announces, like, hey, Julie, guess what? I bought tickets for me and Alex to go on the boat with you. Like, it's gonna be a good time. Family trip. So she's like, no, you're not going on the boat. And he's like, I am going on the boat. I have tickets. And she's like, oh, for fuck's sake, fine, get on the boat. Meanwhile, Henry is still off being like just a mess and very erratic in his behavior. He's getting even more like paranoid because he knows the police are like onto him because they found one of like the stolen coins from his uncle's collection on a dead loan shark. So his father shows up and he's like, Henry, you're gonna pull your shit together and you're gonna get on the boat and you're gonna watch out for Julie. And don't come hit me up for more money. Here's some money you're not getting anymore. Stay away from belly dancers and card tables. So Julie, Ramses, Elliot, Alex, and Henry all set sail for Egypt. And all of these people having to hang out with each other all the time when there's a lot of tensions between them, and like a new love triangle that's here with, immortal mummy, Julie, and also Alex. So there's a lot of drama, basically. However, it does give Julie the opportunity to finally break it off with Alex for real. She's like, I've been stringing you along all this time because I couldn't stand to hurt your feelings, but I don't love you the same way. I've never loved you the same way. We're not getting married. I'm sorry. Alex is heartbroken about it, but he's such like a little cinnamon roll of a human that he's like, okay, well, we're still friends, Julie. I still love you. And like, it's so sweet. Like, if anyone hurt Alex in this book, like I would riot in the streets. He is the most precious character. The boat is getting closer and closer to the final destination. However, I think they're on more of like a cruise than they are like just like a commuter boat. Because they keep making stops along the way for like excursions. So you can like leave the boat, go around, and then come back to the boat and they leave again. So they're stopping at all these places like Alexandria, Abu Simbel, Luxor, Valley of the Kings. They go to all these places and they're looking at all of the old like monuments and statues and temples and stuff. And Ramses is just feeling rather melancholy about seeing his whole world transformed by modern times, where now like things that were new for him are ruins. And not a lot of really significant stuff happens on all of these excursions besides Ramses being a little melancholy about stuff. The only really significant event that happens is finally Julie and Ramses become a real life couple, and they're in love with each other. And they have sex for the first time in the sand, like in the Valley of the Kings. And like this was Julie's first time as well, and like this could not have been comfortable for her. She's got sand in all of her crevices. I'm just reading it going, ooh, sand was a bad choice. But anyway, they're together now. They're a couple. They're in love. So finally, our group reaches Cairo, where they're going to be staying at like the fancy like British hotel in town. And Henry runs off. He's like, I'm done. I'm off the boat. I don't need to deal with you people anymore. I'm going to go see my mistress, who's a belly dancer. So Henry leaves them. And the rest of the group, they go, sightseeing. They go on a private tour of the Museum of Cairo. And, they're looking at all of like the mummies and stuff, including one that's allegedly Ramses II. And Ramses like, like just kind of laughing and stuff. It's a little lighthearted until Ramses happens to see one random mummy, and it's just of an unidentified woman who was mummified unusually in a more natural process, kind of like when you find the mummies like in a bog, where they weren't mummified, but they were mummified due to where they were buried. And Ramses loses his shit because he knows that mummy. That's not an unidentified woman. That mummy is motherfucking Cleopatra. He knows. He's like, I know that face even in mummy form. And he starts freaking out and he's like flailing about. He knocks some stuff over and they're like, oh my God, leave. Like, what is your problem? So they get kicked out of the museum. Later that night, after everyone's kind of gone to bed, Ramses, he goes back out and he's like gonna go to the museum, and he brings a vial of his elixir with him. Elliot catches him, and so he secretly follows him to the museum, and he sees Ramses like open up the container that's holding the unidentified woman, and he pours the vial of elixir over it and pours some in the mouth of the mummy. And like nothing happens for a second. All of a sudden, the mummy starts regenerating and like moving and stuff. The problem is this mummy was not in good shape to start with. Like there are whole hunks of like skin missing, and it's a full Frankenstein's monster of a woman, okay? There's big gaps where they're just like bones showing because, she didn't have that skin as a mummy. It didn't regenerate on the first go. So she just covered in like open wounds. And she just looks like zombie Cleopatra. And like Frankenstein the scientist, Ramses is horrified at what he's just done. He didn't think it was gonna go that direction. She wakes up, she's full on corpse bride, like, oh my God. And he just keeps backing away from her and like trying to run away because, zombie Cleopatra. The security finally shows up and they see Ramses and they like capture him. And it gives Cleopatra enough time to like run off into the distance. And like the police, they take him to the police station. He's captured. Eventually he does manage to like overpower the police officers and escape. But that's a little bit later on. Right now, what is happening is Elliot has seen zombie lady come out of her tomb and run off in the museum. So he goes after her. He finds her in this little office where this poor cleaning lady, wrong place, wrong time, she sees Corpse Bride and she's like, oh my God, and starts screaming. And Cleopatra is scared and confused and lost and doesn't know anything right now. She just woke up. So Cleopatra like just snaps her neck. And Elliot pops in the room and he starts talking in Latin because he's fluent. And like Cleopatra would have also spoken Latin at this time. And he's like, hey, don't snap my neck. I'm your friend. I am your friend. I am here to protect you. I'm going to help you. So he like grabs a cloak off one of the hangers in the room, drapes it around her, and like kind of like leads her out of the museum. And he grabs like a horse-drawn like carriage outside of it. He takes her to the one place he can think of where people would never go looking for him. He shows up at the front door of Henry's mistress's house. And it goes about as well as you think it would. Henry freaks out. He's like, who is this zombie? You brought more mummies to my house? He starts shooting a gun at Cleopatra and hitting her, and like, ouchie, bullets hurt. And so Cleopatra gets mad at him and she just runs up at him, smacks him, breaks Henry's neck. So now Henry's dead. And then, Cleopatra, she's just kind of wandering off. She's like, I'm hungry, I want food. So like, Malenka is the name of the belly dancer mistress. She's like, okay, and she's like, go have all the food you want. I don't want police coming to my house, so I'll go to call my cousin up and he'll take care of this. Like, she's not really necessarily all that sad Henry's dead either. She's like, I just don't want the police here. So she calls up her cousin, and the cousins and like a bunch of dudes come over later and they pick up Henry's body. And like, TLDR on this, they're running kind of like a mummy chop shop where they take like any dead body from today, i.e. Henry's dead body, and then they mummify them up to look like an ancient mummy and they sell them to tourists. I'm pretty sure this was a real thing, but like, oh my word, poetic justice almost, you know? Like, Henry gets up being a mummy in the end. So Elliot's with Cleopatra in the house, in the bedroom. He's trying to like comfort her. He notices that when she's in the sunlight, she seems to regenerate more. So he opens all the windows, and so like a lot of sunlight's just hitting her. But she can only regenerate so much because, mind you, a bunch of the skin was not on the mummy when she got resurrected. So like some of her fingers are literally just bones. And like one of her whole foot is just bones. There's no skin on her foot or some of her fingers. She has a big like hole in her side, so just ribs are sticking out. Corpse bride, okay? And also it's painful. She has giant holes in her body and the skin is bleeding a little bit. You know, it's live tissue, so she's in pain. She's confused. No one sat down and told her what was happening. She's just all of a sudden awake 2,000 years later. When she was a mummy at one point, she was dead. She was dead and now she's alive again. It's a whole lot to process. And mind you, her resurrection wasn't even done right, okay? She is not okay mentally for multiple reasons. But Elliot's kind and he's staying there and he's trying to explain things to her. He's teaching her English, like saying something in Latin and then repeating it in English. So she's kind of learning the language a little bit. And then things take like a really weird turn. Like, it already took a weird turn. We're turning again, all right? Because I guess all of this healing makes Cleopatra rather horny, and she seduces Elliot. And Elliot is kind of like, okay, I'm an old guy. I've got a bad hip. I've got a heart condition, but I will be damned if I don't fuck Cleopatra. So they have sex. So after the sex, he helps her get cleaned up, like bath, and like he puts some clothes on her that belong to Malenka, and you know, doing the best he can. I mean, he can't cover her bones up, but she can give her gloves though to cover her bone fingers. So he's just kind of helping her as best as he can. And Malenka comes back after, you know, her cousins have already taken Henry away, and she's like, oh my god, zombie lady is wearing my clothes, and she has a freak out about it. Cleopatra breaks her neck too. It's becoming a habit at this point. Elliot's like, all right, Cleopatra, we can't keep killing everybody, okay? It's gonna get messy after a certain point. Stay here and relax, focus on getting healthier, and I'm gonna go after Ramses, and I'm gonna try to get more elixir for you, because maybe you just need extra because you were in such bad shape before you had it. And so he leaves, and Cleopatra's just like, you can't tell a queen what to do. So she just waits for Elliot to leave and then goes out on her own. You know, she's all dressed anyway, might as well go see the town. However, it's completely overwhelming for her because, you know, she died 2,000 years ago, and here we are in 1914. She almost shits herself when she sees a train, because it's this huge metal beastly monstrosity rolling down the tracks at her. They're loud and they're like belching smoke and fire, and she's like, what is this dragon? Like, she is like having a panic attack. She almost gets hit by a car because she doesn't know what cars are. But luckily this nice young man like pulls her out of the way of the car, and he's like, oh my god, are you all right? He's like, let's go to this cafe. I'll buy you some coffee, you know, you take a rest for a minute. So he's just being nice enough to her. He's buying her like a coffee. They're talking for a few minutes. I guess the thrill of almost getting hit by a car makes Cleopatra horny too, because she takes this young man out to the alley and gets him to have sex with her. And after the sex, she's done with him. She has no more use of him. So she does her old habit of breaks his neck. He's dead now too. straight up praying mantis style. Like, she just breaking everybody's neck. So Clea just keeps on moving, okay? She has things to do today. She's on her whole, like, sex shopping and murder spree all over Cairo. She meets another young man, an American this time, and he has his own car, and he's like, hey, little lady, why don't you get in my car? We'll go sightseeing. And, like, he's not being a creep about it, actually. Like, he's genuinely going to take her sightseeing. And she's, like, horrified of the car, but she's also, like, really, like, excited by it. She's like, I'm going really fast right now. Like, this is great. So, they go out. They're over at, like, the Sphinx. And she kind of pulls him out of the car, and they're, like, in this little area, and, like, she's trying to get him to have sex with her. He pulls up her skirt and looks down and sees, uh-oh, you have a foot made entirely out of skeleton bones. And he starts freaking out. And this hurts her feelings. So she's like, no, breaks his neck too. So she's up to 5 neck breaks in less than 24 hours. Like, this is a lot, all right? But she's like, oh, what time is it? Okay, the sun looks like it's going down. Oh shit, I should go back to the house because Elliot's gonna show up soon. So she takes the keys to a dead guy's car and, like, steals his car as well. So while all that was happening, Elliot, he goes back to the hotel looking for Ramses. He runs into Samir. He's like, Ramses is in here. The police are looking for him because they think, like, he escaped their custody and also stole a mummy. And Elliot's like, Samir, you need to listen to me. I know you're going to see Ramses. I know it. You don't have to bring me to him, but this is what you gotta tell him. Tell him that I have her, okay? He'll know what I mean. I have her, and you need to bring more elixir so she stops being a crazy bone lady. So Samir goes over to where Ramses is hiding, and he's there with Julie. He tells him what Elliot said, and Ramses finally is like, oh shit, okay. I guess I have to be honest with both of you. And he's like, so hey guys, that mummy that I freaked out about, yeah, she's my ex-girlfriend Cleopatra, and then I brought her back from the dead kind of badly. And Julie's like, the fuck are you doing? Like, she gets so mad at him. He's like, why would you think this is a good idea? You can't go give her more elixir. She died, okay? This isn't like a human person who's alive taking elixir. This was a very dead person, and she has come back. This is like full-on Pet Cemetery. You know, sometimes dead is better, okay? You can't go giving her more. She is not Cleopatra. She's a new thing running around breaking everybody's neck. So Ramsay goes to meet with Elliot, and Elliot tells him, hey, I have Cleopatra. I know you want Cleopatra. I will give her to you if you give me elixir. I want to take it. I want to be immortal. You should give it to me. Or otherwise, I'm not giving you Cleopatra back. And Ramsay's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So Elliot's like, well, sucks to be you. I'll give you some time to think about it. So Elliot leaves, and Ramses just kind of casually follows him right back to Malenka's house where Cleopatra is. Like, Elliot, you're not even doing a good job here. So Elliot goes inside the house. Cleopatra's there, and she's like, did you get the medicine? Did you get what I need? And he's like, not yet. But it's going to happen. You just got to be patient, okay? I've started getting it. But Cleopatra is not one to be patient. She's like, have you seen my bones sticking out? I need it now. What do you mean you did not get it? So she goes to strangle Elliot, you know, pull one of her signature neck snaps. And before she can do that, someone arrives and yanks her off of him. It's Ramses. And he tells Elliot to get the fuck out of here, okay? Leave. So Elliot's like, good idea. And he leaves. So now it's just Ramses and Cleopatra after all this time. And they kind of just get into it like an immortal mummy fight with each other because neither one can really overpower the other. So she starts, you know, being kind of weak and sad and like crying and like, I don't understand what's happening. I know who you are, but I don't know who you are at the same time. Every time my memories come back, they fade away. Everything's muddled up in her head and she's in physical pain. Like, all of these things are true, actually. And he feels bad for her because he put her in this position, and also, you know, he was in love with her for so long that he ends up giving her another vial of the elixir just like she wanted. She drinks it down, and pretty immediately all of her skin grows back. She's fully immortal now. Everything is healed, and it's confirmed. Healing makes her horny because she's like, Ramses, we gotta have sex right now. And Ramses is like, yep. Yes, we do. So they proceed to have wild immortal sex. And it's like, damn, Ramses, weren't you in love with Julie like 10 minutes ago? Like, already here having sex with his ex. Damn it. So after the sex, Cleopatra stops being nice, sweet, piteous Cleopatra and starts like doing a 180 here. Because her last memory of Ramses is her hating him because he refused to give Mark Antony the elixir after he had died. And that's why she ended up killing herself, because she wanted to be with Mark Antony and no one had the elixir. So she's still like pretty pissed off at him. Like that's her last memory. And everything else in her brain is just a big muddled mess of emotions and memories and violence. And she's just going all over the place. She's not okay. Like the only thing that gives her comfort right now is having sex and snapping necks. And Ramses is trying to reason with her. He's like, hey, maybe not do that, Like maybe stop snapping necks at the very least. They fight again. She ends up just like kneeing him in the junk. And he's like, ah, because, he might be immortal, but it still hurts to get kneed in the balls. And she takes off. So while that was happening, Elliot, he's feeling real stupid about everything. He's like, well, I'm definitely not getting elixir now. Fuck. And he's just going back to the hotel. And on his way back, the cops pull over and they like, hey, we need to talk to you. And he's like, what? What now? He's like, hey, there's been like a lot of murders all over town and stuff. Like, what's this about? And also we heard about some murders over in London. Do you know where Henry is? And Elliot is like, this is a freebie. Okay, why not blame all of the murders on Henry and like, throw suspicion off of Ramses and Cleopatra? And the police are like, that's like a good idea. We should go check this out. And the police, they eventually go over to Malenka's house. And they don't find Henry there, but they do find Malenka's dead body and all of Henry's like personal effects and passport and stuff. And they're like putting one and one together, even though this isn't the right one and one, but they're like, oh, Henry's a murderer. He killed a lot of people. So now Henry is prime suspect number one. They don't know that he's already been turned into a mummy. So now that that's taken care of, let's talk about Cleopatra again. Okay, she's out in the town in her car, still going on her shopping, sex, and murder spree. She eventually tries to go to like the fancy English hotel in town where like all of our group are staying. And she gets there and she sees Elliot from far away. She's like, oh, Elliot, he's handsome and stuff. And like, he saved me. So she's like cool with Elliot, I guess now, even though she tried to murder him a little bit ago. And then she happens to see Alex, Elliot's son, who's like Elliot, who's handsome, but younger and like hotter. And she's like, oh, damn, who is that? Like, I needed some of that in my life. He's like a sexy golden retriever. And then when Alex is alone, Cleopatra comes and like walks up to him. She's like, oh, hi, hello, I'm here. Why don't we have dinner? And Alex is like, sure, I love dinner. Your hair is pretty. Let's go. Like just being the sweetest, most innocent-minded person to ever exist. So he takes her to dinner and he's just so like sweet. And like, there's not a vicious bone in his body like most men that she has met have had. And that she's just like, strangely enough, she just really likes him. She's like, I'm confused and also turned on. Like she just really likes Alex. So, they finish dinner, they dance for a while. And she's like, hey, why don't you come back up to my hotel room, for stuff. And Alex is like, sure, let's go. Like just so happy. And, they get to her room and they proceed to have all of the sex. And afterward, Alex is still so sweet. She's just like, you know what? I'm not going to snap your neck. You get to stay. So while Alex and Cleopatra are having their romantic evening, all the rest of the group are still trying to figure out what to do about Cleopatra. Ramses, he has to come back to the hotel and tell Julie, hey, I done fucked up again. I gave her more elixir. I know I told you I wasn't going to do it, but then I did it and I'm sorry, but we're all fucked now. And Elliot is there and he's telling him, hey guys, best news of the week right now. The police think Henry is the murderer of all of these people. Like, this is the best news. This is how we're gonna play this. Elliot has fixed a lot of problems for him. And now, like, this little espionage between friends has brought them together. So now they're, like, good friends. Like, Ramses really likes Elliot. He's like, you would have made a great king's advisor. You're sneaky. If the police stop bothering them, it means they're free to move around town and hopefully be able to stop Cleopatra. Ramses is like, I need to kill her, but, like, the nicest way possible because, she's kind of the victim in this, too. I'm just gonna bury her alive, which sounds like really extreme, but for like immortal mummy people, being enclosed in a thing with no sunlight just makes you go to sleep. So it's just really nap time. However, they don't really have any good leads on how to find Cleopatra. The only thing we can really do is try to go about our day as normal and see if we hear something. And more than likely, they'll probably find her tonight, because the big event in Cairo is that at the opera house, they're doing the opera Aida, and like everybody's going to be there. So like likely Cleopatra will probably be there. That's their whole plan. Let's act normal until tonight, when we hope we can catch Cleopatra. Speaking of which, Cleopatra still hanging out with Alex. Like, they're going out in the town and they're sightseeing, and Alex is just already so in love with her. And surprisingly, like, Cleopatra finds all of this so endearing. She's like, you are so sweet. Oh my gosh, like, I could see myself like loving you too. Like, she's way into Alex. They just met, but whatever, they're in love with each other. And Alex kind of brings up like, hey, are you going to the opera tonight? Because I have tickets. You should go with me as my date, and you can maybe meet my dad and then my friends and stuff. And Cleopatra's like, we should go to the opera. Tell me more about these friends you mentioned. And Alex is like, yeah, here, there's a picture of them in the newspaper. That's Ramses, and that's Elliot, that's my father, and then that's Julie. She's my ex-fiance. And she's like, why's Ramses got his arm around Julie? And he's like, well, I mean, so like they're together now, and like my feelings were hurt, but it's okay now because we're together. Like, I'm happy again. And she's like, oh, good to know. Tell me more about Julie. Like, she's putting together a revenge plan already, because what's better way to hurt Ramses than the same way that he hurt her? He let Mark Anthony die, so she's gonna make damn sure Julie dies. We're gonna just skip ahead to tonight. It's opera time, all right? Everybody's like showing up, and they're all in different boxes all over the place. Cleopatra walks in with Alex. They're sitting in their little box, and she happens to spot Ramses. They don't notice them, but she notices him. She's like, ooh, there that fucker is over there, and he's with Julie. Like, she's just stewing in anger. And at a certain point, she sees Julie get up and leave. So she's like, this is an opportunity. So she gets up and she like walks around the edge and so she can see them. And she sees that like Ramses and Julie are arguing with each other, because Ramses is trying to convince Julie to take the elixir and become an immortal with him so they can be together forever. And Julie is like, I don't want to take the elixir. Look what it did to Cleopatra. She is like an insane person. Do you want that to happen to me? It's a big thing. I can't just like do it at the drop of a hat. And Julie storms off and she goes in the women's room to like cry, have a good cry about it. So she is in there and she's trying to have some alone time, and then she hears the door open and someone had followed her into the bathroom. She's like, oh great, there's some other lady here. And the lady just sits down right next to Julie on this little bench, and she's like, why are you sitting next to me? What is your deal? So she like looks up at her. She's like, oh no, you're Cleopatra, ain't you? Cleopatra's just really still trying to figure out what to do. She's just examining Julie and she's trying to make up her mind. Because like on the one hand, Mark Anthony died and Ramses didn't help him. I could kill Julie and make him feel the same way I did. Revenge sounds amazing. But the other side of it is that Julie is like a complete innocent in this. She has nothing to do with what happened to her 2,000 years ago. She's just in the crossfire. So she's like really thinking about it. She's like, you don't deserve to die, but like, I want you to die. So like basically Cleopatra's mind is kind of coming back online, okay? She's not just like sex and murder crazy. She's like actually thinking now. And Cleopatra, she has Julie by the neck and she's kind of hitting her head on the wall like, why should I not kill you? And luckily, some other women finally come into the bathroom. So Cleopatra's like, like leaves real quick. And Julie's like, ah, like she's been choked, you know? And Julie comes running out of the bathroom and she's like, Ramses, ah! Like, you know, she's having a rough evening. Ramsey comes running up to her. He's like, oh my God, Julie, what happened? She's like, Cleopatra was here. She tried to kill me. She's here. He takes Julie back to their box and he's like, Elliot, Samir, guess what? Cleopatra's here. So Elliot and Samir, they're like, we're going to look. So they're off looking. Ramses is staying back with Julie to like protect her. So for the rest of the show, Elliot and Samir can't find Cleopatra. Mind you, she's just sitting with Alex. Like, she's not hard to find. And it's finally right when the show is letting out, Ramses sees her in the box with Alex. And Alex is like, hi, Ramses. Like just just being the sweetest person. And she's like, ugh. So she just grabs Alex and runs away. And they're like, oh, we gotta chase her. But like everybody's leaving the theater right now. They get lost in the crowd. He loses them. So he's like, oh shit. So he's like, oh no, where are they gonna go? And then Elliot's like, don't worry about it. There's the big opera ball tonight. Alex is gonna be there. He told me he was gonna be there. He's probably gonna bring her with. So we're gonna have to go to the ball and just wait for her to show up and hope she doesn't murder Alex in the meantime, because there's nothing we can do about it. So Alex and Cleopatra do come to the ball, and Cleopatra is like visibly distraught. Like I said, her memories are back online. She's like fully like kind of come back to sanity. So she's like, oh my gosh, I like killed so many people today. Like, I feel bad about it. I probably shouldn't have killed all those dudes who were just helping me. And she's like, oh no, but Alex, you're so damn sweet. And like, you don't deserve this. And like, shit's about to hit the fan. I just know it. So she's distraught. And Alex is just like, what's wrong? Like, can I make it better? Like, just tell me. I'll do whatever I can to help you. So it's right now that Alex sees all of his friends are like kind of running towards them. Well, like walking fast. They're in a ballroom. So like Ramses and his father, Elliot, Julie, Samir, they're all coming to them. Cleopatra sees it too, and she's like, oh, I am so fucked right now. And then, you know, all of his friends and his father show up, and they already know her. And he's like, how do you guys already know my date? We're in love. And like, he's really confused. And then Ramsay just kind of grabs her and he's like, we need to talk. He just pulls her away and they're off on the dance floor now. And it's a very tense dance with them. Like, he's holding her too tight for her to pull away and escape. And they both are so mad at each other. He's like, what is wrong with you? Try to kill Julie. You killed all these people in town. Like, the fuck? And she's like, I didn't ask for this, Ramses. I was dead, okay? Like, this has been a lot. You like brought me back and then ran off and left me to fend for myself. And also, you let my boyfriend die. And then when I was dying, you didn't even help me then. So like, go fuck yourself. She's very mad at him for very legitimate reasons. And he is upset that she's pulling Julie's name into this again. He's just like, I will put you back in the fucking grave. So she is freaking out. She's like cornered animal at this point. She manages to break free and she like runs out of the room and everyone starts chasing them. But Alex is there and he's trying to like protect her. So he's like stopping Ramses and stuff. And she runs outside and she sees like a car just pulled up to the valet. She just like runs in, grabs it and like takes off. And Alex is still chasing her. So he's like, wait. And he like kind of jumps into the back seat of the car. So now she and Alex driving away like a bat out of hell. And Ramses, he's the last one down. He grabs the next car at the valet, and now we have a big car chase all throughout Cairo. And Cleopatra's just like panicked and doesn't know what she's doing. She's not even on the road anymore. She's just out in the dirt. And eventually she hears a train coming, and those are terrifying to her. And like she's running right at the train tracks when a train is coming. Luckily, Alex manages to like grab the wheel and have her hit the brakes, so they like stop really quick. And like the train like passes like a foot in front of them. Close call. So good news, they weren't hit by the train. Bad news is the car is still on train tracks and it's stuck there. And wouldn't you know, there's another train coming from the opposite direction right towards them. So Alex, he manages to get out of the car and he's trying to pull Cleopatra out. But it's right at that same moment, the train hits the car. Like, she goes flying. The whole thing explodes. It's like Michael Bay level explosion of a car on this train track. And Alex, luckily, he got like thrown away from the wreckage, so he's okay, albeit a little crispy from the explosion. But Ramses, he's like looking everywhere to find Cleopatra in the wreckage, and there's just no trace of her. She must have burned alive. And Ramses like, no, she can't burn alive. I've tried to burn myself alive. It doesn't work. But like, Ramses, you didn't have the same type of like accelerants that we have now. Like, this fire was much hotter than anything you could have like ever had yourself come in contact to in the past. So everyone believes like, hey, this was like a mega fireball explosion. Like, she's gone. She's exploded. So in the aftermath of Cleopatra's death number 2, everyone's just really like changed by it. Ramses, of course, he's devastated that he failed Cleopatra yet again, and even worse this time. Julie is heartbroken because she loves Ramses and she wants to be with him, but she can't be with him unless she takes the elixir, and she doesn't want to take the elixir. So she's like, well, this is going nowhere, but I'm still gonna be in love with this guy. Fuck me, right? And Alex is maybe the most changed out of all of them, because like this whole trip has sucked for him, okay? His first love broke up with him for another dude, and then his second love exploded right in front of him. Okay? Elliot's had a hard time, and it really sucks to see him like so devastated, and like that like happy sunshine spark in him is just gone, and it's like, oh, poor Alex, I am so upset. You can't hurt my baby Alex. Julie and Alex are leaving. They are on a train out of Cairo. They're gonna go back to the harbor, get on a boat, go back to England. That's their plan right now. Two sad kids on a train. And Ramses and Elliot are happy that they're leaving, at least because at least they're safe and alive, and it's probably better for them that they're not around them right now, because everyone's changed from this, you know, whole debacle, but Elliot's maybe the least changed. He's still kind of an older guy with a bum leg and a bad heart, and he's just like, well, I don't know, I guess I'll go drink myself to death, because like, why not at this point? I got my philosophy I can read, I got gin, I'll just drink myself to death. It's the British way, you know, classy. And Ramses is like, hey, like, would you still take the elixir knowing everything you've seen? And Elliot's like, bro, it's a moot point. There's no more elixir, so I'm off to the bar. See you later, friend. So Elliot goes back to the hotel. He rests for like a day, and he wakes up the next morning and he sees that there was a delivery for him in the night from his Egyptian friend. And it was, quote, a vial of medicine that would really help with his health problems. And there's a little note along with it from Ramses saying, it's your choice. Ramses has officially given Elliot a vial of the elixir. And Elliot's not like rushing into this decision like he would have a few days ago. He's like, I'm gonna think about this for a minute. So he wanders around Egypt. He's really like considering all of the factors involved in taking this serum. The thing that really makes his decision super clear is when he's like in the bazaar and he sees this guy trying to sell mummies to tourists. He's like, that mummy is fucking Henry. Nope, I'm drinking this. All of a sudden, boom, his heart is healthy, his leg is healthy, he's like younger, and he's just like, I'm off into adventures. So Elliot goes off into the sunset to go adventure. Meanwhile, back on the boat, Julie and Alex, they're just, you know, going through the motions of life because both of them just got chewed up and spit out by like immortal ancient Egyptians. So at least they have that in common. But they're both just like super sad and like don't know what to do with their life anymore. Like, what do you do after that? And Julie decides she has nothing to live for. She's like, if I can't have Ramses, then I don't want to live and I'm never gonna see him again. So I'm just going to unalive myself. So she's about to jump overboard when someone catches her and pulls her back onto the boat. And guess who it is, everybody? It's Ramses. He made his way over to the boat and he tells her, like, Julie, I'm in love with you. Don't ever try to like hurt yourself like that again. I couldn't live with knowing you hurt yourself. They go back to her room and rekindle their relationship, if you know what I mean. I mean, they had sex, but this time not on sand, thank goodness. Afterward, Ramses gives her a little vial of elixir and he's like, it's your choice. And Julie, she's still really, really worried about what this will mean long term, but she's so in love with Ramses that she can't like think about living without him. So Julie takes the elixir. So now Julie is also immortal. And you would think that's the end of the book, but it's not the book. I'm just going to tell you right now, we have like a mid-credit teaser scene that comes out because we flash over to the Sudan and they go rush and call this doctor into the hospital because a woman just came in and she's been very badly burned and they found her under some crates on a train. So the doctor's like, oh God, what am I going to do for this poor burn victim? And he goes to the hospital and he sees this woman just laying there in bed with soft sunlight coming in from the window. And she looks like she's never been burned a day in her life. And she just wakes up as soon as he comes in the room. And she's like, oh, look at you. You're so handsome. And why don't you take me outside so I could just be in the sunshine? So he's like, yeah, okay, sure. And he takes her outside and they go for a walk. He takes her over to like his little apartment that's outside of the hospital. And he's like, is there anyone I can call for you? Like, what happened? And she's like, oh no, don't worry about it. I have plenty of time to reconnect with my friends. But why don't we just go inside for a little bit? You know, because all of this healing certainly makes her horny. And she like seduces the doctor into having sex with her. Guess what, everybody? Cleopatra survived the crash and she is in Sudan and fucking doctors. The end. That's the end of the book. Okay, so that was The Mummy. It's a doozy of a book. It is only like 400 and something pages. It's short for Anne Rice, but like so much happens in it. There's so many POVs and different characters doing different things at the same time. So like a lot happens in it, but overall, it's really good. I had a really fun time reading this. If you're a fan of Mummy 1999, you're gonna love this. I'm a super fan of that movie, so like, yes, this was right up my alley. I really liked all the characters, even though some of them I don't feel were fully developed. Cough, Julie, cough. I'm excited to see where this goes next. So there are 2 more books in this. This is a trilogy, so I will be doing videos on those coming up. But for right now, The Mummy, or Ramses the Damned. I thought it was quite good. All right, let me know in the comments down below. What's a book you read that just has so much happening in it? Like everyday nonstop action. Let me know what it is in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos and a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.